Tonight, election countdown. It's 1 year until Scotland goes to the polls. As party leaders make their pitches for votes, what are the issues on constituents' minds?
They need to have some way of bringing people back into the town centre, and I think reducing rates and some kind of rates relief would be ideal.
We need somebody that's not afraid to shake things up a bit.
Also making the headlines, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves says there's an important role for the oil and gas industry as 250 workers lose their jobs. As tensions between India and Pakistan escalate, Scots say they're worried for their loved ones caught up in the conflict. And in sport, almost there. Rangers' single largest shareholder, Dave King, says the US consortium's takeover will happen next month. I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Exactly a year from now, voters will be going to the polls to elect MSPs and the next Scottish Government. Today, party leaders have been making their pitches for your votes, kicking off the campaign for the Scottish Parliament election. It comes as Scotland faces further engineering job losses, with 250 oil and gas workers being laid off by one of the North Sea's biggest employers. Our political editor, Colin Mackay, has been across it all. Colin, what have the political leaders been offering?
Well, for John Swinney, today is a year on, marking 12 months since he became First Minister. But for him, for all the party leaders, in fact, for all of us as voters, it's a year to go, because most of the parties were kick-starting their campaigns today for the 2026 Scottish Parliament elections. The party leaders were making speeches to their own members, their own supporters. There was more waffle around than in a Brussels cafe. But John Swinney acknowledged the problems that he inherited, said that the SNP were winning back trust, and for him the next year is very much all about delivery. The Scottish Conservative leader did a bit of Swinney bashing, Farage bashing, and for Labour's and Assawa, the message is still of change.
I want us to unite around a shared vision and a common purpose, a determination to build a Scotland where we can all feel at home, where no child is left behind, and where everyone could fulfil their potential. We know that when the SNP does well, Scotland does well.
We're the only party that can be trusted in the Union, and we're the only party in Holyrood that believes in reducing taxation to lessen the burden on hard-working Scots. We're the party of aspiration and ambition, and that's what I'll continue to champion every single day of the week.
Well, the choice next year is not who the UK government is, the choice is who the Scottish government is. And we can either choose a third decade of the SNP and John Swinney with record log NHS waiting lists, or we can choose to take a new direction with me as First Minister doing whatever it takes to fix our NHS. That's the choice people face next year.
That's a leader's pitches, Colin, but what state are the parties in?
Well, there's an interesting opinion poll out today from Survation. It suggests that the SNP are out in front on 33% on the constituency vote, followed by Labour and Reform, neck and neck on 19%. It actually puts Reform ahead on the list vote, ahead of Labour. It puts the Conservatives on 11, followed by the Lib Dems and then the Greens. But that's just an opinion poll. There's a real by-election coming up next month in Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse. Now, that'll be a proper pointer. But in the meantime, Ewan Petrie's been to Ayr, the most marginal Holyrood constituency last time round, to see what voters are thinking now.
Scotland's national bard looms large over the town of Ayr.
After 32 years, you would think it would be getting easier, but it's actually getting tougher.
At the inn where one of Robert Burns' most famous poems began, they're seeing rising costs taking their toll.
At one point there was 26 public houses in the high street, and there's one now, and that's us.
What would you be looking to hear from politicians then over the next 12 months?
They need to have some way of bringing people back into the town centre, and I think reducing rates and some kind of rates relief would be ideal.
At the last Scottish election, it was a close-run race here. The SNP took this seat from the Conservatives by just 170 votes. That makes this the most marginal constituency at the Scottish Parliament. And speaking to voters here, it's clear that once again both national and local issues will determine how they vote this time around.
I think the main issues are going to be the problems with the British government or the UK government not doing what they're promising.
What would swing it for you then?
It's more personal than anything else. Some of the things that they are doing are, they're saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it's like, yeah, that's a great thing, but how does that affect me?
Ewan retired last year.
What kind of issues then do you think will dominate the campaign?
I think the gender recognition. I think there's a lot of talk about that. You hear people talking about it among friends of my own age and that. And they're concerned the way it went.
Sometimes we would wish he said less, but what he's doing is needed.
Christine was brought up here, but now spends most of her time in the US, where President Trump is making waves.
He's making a lot of changes that people were afraid to do, so maybe that's needed here as well.
Do you think so? Do you think someone's...
I do think so, yeah. I think we need somebody that's not afraid to shake things up a bit.
I'm for reform, me.
For some, that person is Nigel Farage. Polls suggest his Reform Party could make big gains at Holyrood next year.
It's no good.
Why reform though?
I'll just give him a chance because we can't be any worse than what's there.
With 12 months to go, there's plenty of scope for the political sands to shift once again before voters head to the polls. Ewan Petrie, STV News, Ayr.
As we mentioned at the beginning of the programme, 250 North Sea oil and gas jobs are to go at Harbour Energy. The company has blamed the UK government's windfall tax. Well, Colin is still with us. And Colin, you've been speaking to the Chancellor about this.
It's been a busy day in Scottish politics. The Chancellor was touring the Glenkinchie distillery just outside Edinburgh. She was there to celebrate the trade deal between the UK and India. That's a huge market for Scotch whisky. The industry reckons that the deal could bring £1 billion boost to it over the next 5 years, creating 1,200 new jobs. But there's bad news on the jobs front for the oil and gas sector, with Harbour Energy axing a quarter of their workforce. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, told me it was a commercial decision being made by the company, but they blame the Chancellor's 78% windfall tax for cutting margins, forcing them to cut jobs.
There's an important role for the North Sea in oil and gas for many years to come, but it's also why, as a government, we are investing in hydrogen and in carbon capture and storage.
Sticking with oil and gas,
So
let's stick with oil and gas, because you say it's got a long-term future, not for the workers who are being made redundant and potentially more to follow.
Well, that's a commercial decision by one company.
Based on your tax decision.
That's a commercial decision by the company.
But they say it's based on your tax decision.
But there are many other companies who aren't laying off workers. They've got to make a commercial decision. But it is important that as those energy companies made record profits after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, that we ask those companies to pay their fair share of tax, especially when ordinary working people saw their energy bills go through the roof. So it is right that we ask the energy companies who made huge profits to pay more in tax,
so you won't
properly fund public services.
So come the June spending review, you will not revisit the windfall tax, the 78% tax?
The windfall tax of 78% puts taxes at the same rate that oil and gas have in Norway. So these
will
are
you reconsider it come June?
Tax. No, the windfall tax stands. It brings in substantial money.
Finally, will you back the Acorn carbon capture project between Grangemouth and Peterhead, which you significantly haven't done so far?
This year, since we came into government, we put money into carbon capture and storage, the first substantial investment by any government.
You put billions into
carbon.
in England, but nothing in Scotland.
So far we've invested in Merseyside and Teesside in carbon capture and storage. That shows the seriousness with which this government takes the importance of carbon capture and storage. And of course, we'll be setting out more plans in due course, as we have with areas like hydrogen, which will benefit Scotland.
You're ready to give Acorn the go-ahead?
I'm not going to preempt the spending review, but you can see this government's commitment to carbon capture and storage.
So the windfall tax stands. I also asked her if she would rethink scrapping the pensioners' winter fuel payment after so many in her party has blamed it for election losses. She says that policy stands too. So today, no change from the Chancellor.
Colin at Holyrood, thank you. Indian and Pakistani communities in Scotland say they're deeply concerned about loved ones in the two countries. It comes as tensions between the neighbours have escalated. India launched airstrikes into the Pakistani-controlled territory of Kashmir and other parts of Pakistan after claiming they were responsible for a terrorist attack 2 weeks ago. 25 Indians and one Nepalese person were shot dead at a holiday resort. Pakistan has denied any involvement in the attack. Vanessa Taff has more.
With loved ones in a disputed part of Pakistan, it's been a worrying 24 hours. From his home in Aberdeen, hearing about the attacks has been unsettling.
They felt the tremors. At the same time, the electricity went all off, so it was a worrying time, and I think that's going to be the same case tonight as well. We're keeping in contact with our family all the time. So that's all we can do at the moment.
Last night, India launched a set of airstrikes in Pakistan and their controlled areas in Kashmir. They claim alleged terrorist camps were targeted. Pakistan say at least 26 civilians have died. Tensions have been rising in the region after a tourist resort in the Indian-controlled territory was targeted 2 weeks ago. 26 people died.
We now come to the oral statement. Minister Faulkner.
World leaders and those in the UK have called for restraint. Military conflict between these nuclear weapon-wielding neighbours isn't new.
Before this attack happened.
But for those in the Indian Hindu community here, it's causing grave concern.
It's being a Scottish Hindu and then hearing that in our near our ancestral home that people are being killed because they're Hindu.
Our summer plans were to travel to India and go see them, and obviously the weather, it's so warm, so we were thinking of going Kashmir or near the mountains.
It could have been anyone that I knew, could have been me, could have been my family, and that thought is extremely scary.
Up to 50,000 Hindus live in Scotland. Many came here within the last 5 years.
It makes you think how connected we are, even though we are thousands of miles away, but the concerns are palpable. The way the terror attack took place was, purely religiously motivated, because people were identified based on whether they were Hindus or Muslims, and they were killed point blank. So that kind of fear started from there.
Welcome, come in. Scots are calling for solidarity, with events being held tonight in the name of peace.
Does this mean that, Indians will be turning against Pakistanis or Pakistanis turning towards Indians? There's innocent people on both sides that are going to be affected by this. Those that are making these decisions are safe in their houses.
It's a worrying moment that whatever happens next could be the beginning of further escalation. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
Victims of the infected blood scandal have condemned the scheme for paying out compensation as disgraceful and contemptible. Nearly £12 billion is set aside to compensate people given blood infected with HIV and hepatitis and their families, but less than £100 million has been paid out. The Infected Blood Inquiry today held a special evidence session into the delays, a year on from its final report.
People are really, their mental state is shocking at the moment, both the affected and the infected. And for them to be dragging this out and for us to be sitting here after 12 months, I said to them, it's disgraceful, immoral, scandalous, contemptible.
A mum of two who stabbed her boyfriend in the heart has been jailed for 8.5 years. Dion Christie struck Jevin Haig with his own hunting knife in her flat in Falkirk in June 2022. The 24-year-old was pregnant at the time and claimed Mr. Haig tried to cut her unborn baby out of her womb. She said she did not know how he had been stabbed. Tributes have been paid to a boxer who was found dead in a house in Glasgow. The body of 28-year-old Josh Taplin was discovered in a property in Knightswood on Monday afternoon. Detectives are treating his death as murder and inquiries are ongoing. No arrests have yet been made. Friends and relatives have paid tribute to Josh, who was an amateur boxer and British Championship winner. The Lord Advocate says she has not received any other proposals to set up more safer drugs consumption rooms in the wake of the Glasgow pilot. But she told MPs there was no reason why similar projects could not go ahead. Dorothy Bain, KC, gave evidence to Westminster's Scottish Affairs Committee on the prosecution policy that allowed the Thistle to open. In its first 4 months, nearly 2,000 injections of heroin or cocaine have been supervised at the Hunter Street facility.
I don't consider that Lord Advocates that I personally require to see the operational details of the facility or the practical delivery of the service that it provides. But we have been informed across the board by expert evidence and what seemed to us highly compelling evidence of experts working in the field of medicine in Scotland that this could help.
Students at a primary school in Glasgow are taking traffic safety matters into their own hands after a few dangerous incidents outside the school. Pupils have formed what they call the Traffic Control Team to create safe crossing measures for children and parents during busy school hours. Raheem Cham has more.
This is what most of us grew up to. The lollipop person making sure we safely reach the classroom. But pupils at Riverside Primary say pavement parking and speeding have led to some near misses. Their solution, forming the junior parking officers and taking control of road safety.
Cars park here a lot, too much, and when we're doing discos and things, it's hard for people to walk by because when they accidentally scrape the car, they're gonna be in an argument.
When it's about 3 o'clock, there's a lot of cars will come in, and then they block the pavement by putting their cars there, and it's hard for children to cross and stuff.
It's harder for little kids or kids and parents to cross the road because it's getting really tight and there's going to be lots and lots of traffic.
Parents and teachers say clear speed limit signs are needed in the area. They've also put up a parking pledge and urged the council to lay down road markings to keep cars off the pavement.
So the council have been working with us, which has been excellent. They have agreed that this is absolutely a priority for our area, have been very supportive, and luckily they have decided that hopefully this summer or sometime soon we will have some yellow zigzag lines painted on the road as well, which means that it will be enforceable for parents not to, or anybody using this street not to park on this part of the road.
And with plans to increase the number of pupils at the school, these young traffic officers are hoping drivers get up to speed quickly on their plans for road safety. Raheem Cham, STV News, Glasgow.
As we prepare to mark 80 years since the end of the Second World War in Europe tomorrow, VE Day, Ukrainians in Scotland are reflecting on the continuing conflict in their own country. Even today, more lives have been lost after a Russian drone strike. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
This is the front line of war in Europe. Not 80 years ago, but now in 2025. As Ukraine continues its defence against the Russian invasion, I met a group of Ukrainians now living in Edinburgh.
It's not normal. War is not normal, but people try to live the peaceful life. What I mean by saying this is going to work, try to raise the kids, but that's all simultaneously with the air raid alerts, with bombing, missile attacks.
And this is the result of one of those attacks, a car dealership bombed in the capital, Kiev.
I start my day with the news. I start my day with what's my sister telling, and just wonder, are you going to Kiev because there was a bombardment and she needs to go to work because they're still working in the offices. And they are told that you need to come to office for work, yeah? So they cannot work online, so this is crazy. But she needs to go to work to the center while it was a bombardment. So she's saying, no, yes, I need to go.
Almost 1 million Ukrainians are now in active military service.
My stepfather, he's fighting now. He always saying about that he's scared to don't see us again. And it's really hurtful because he cannot come to us to see us, and we cannot even go to his place where he is. And it's something that if something happened, you will never see him.
I know people who are in army now in Ukraine,
and there are the same people who are alike people that we remember from Second World War. And when I talked to those Ukrainian soldiers, they would never say that just remembering them for one day or a week in a year, it's enough. It's not that we need to remember, we need to know those people, we need to think about it, and we need their lives is the price of our freedom.
A sentiment at the heart of the Second World War and this one. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
Raman's here with the sport, and the Rangers takeover looks to be picking up pace.
That's right, John. We've been reporting on this for a few weeks now. A US consortium is looking to buy a controlling stake in Rangers, and one of the main shareholders at the club has been speaking today.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Spring Sale.
Good evening. Rangers' single largest shareholder, Dave King, says the deal for an American consortium to take over the club has more than a 90% chance of being completed and expects it to go through by mid-June. Health tycoon Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marathi, the latter who leads the financial side of NFL team San Francisco 49ers, were given a tour of Ibrox last week and are aiming to take at least a 51% controlling stake in the club. King, who has almost a 13% stake in Rangers, said there are still a few things to be done in the deal but can't see anything that will prevent it from going through. He revealed that former Rangers director Paul Murray introduced him to the consortium, with Murray describing the Americans as the real deal. He also claimed there was interest from Saudi Arabia in Rangers before the US consortium, and described Rangers' transfer activity over the last few seasons as deplorable. Kilmarnock assistant manager Paul Sheeran says it's no surprise Derek McInnes is being considered by Hearts as their next boss. Following Neil Critchley's sacking 11 days ago, the Tynecastle club are looking to appoint the third head coach this season, and McInnes is a contender. He joined Killie in 2022 and last year signed a new contract until 2027.
Absolutely no surprise whatsoever. I think the job he done up in Aberdeen and clubs similar stature, I'd say Aberdeen and Hearts, it doesn't surprise me that he's linked to it again, not at all. I'd like to think that the club are always in a position to be ready if anything was to happen. I think managers get sacked, managers move on to better things, so there's always a evolution in the game, and I'm sure the club will be prepared if they have to be for that eventuality.
United boss Scott Brown was full of praise for Jamie Murphy after the forwards' goal gave the Honest Men the advantage in their Premiership playoff quarter-final against Partick Thistle last night. Murphy scored the only goal in last night's first leg at Firhill. The second leg is at Somerset Park on Friday night. Jags co-manager Brian Graham admits his team are way below par but believes they can turn around the tie. To rugby, and Glasgow Warriors coach Pete Murchie believes a number of the club's players are in with a good shout of being named in the British and Irish Lions squad. Head coach Andy Farrell will reveal tomorrow which players have made the cut for the summer tour of Australia, with Edinburgh also hopeful some of their Scotland internationals will get the call. Jimmy Borthwick reports.
Since 1888, the combined unions of the British Isles.
It's a tradition like few others in the world of sport. Every 4 years, the British and Irish Lions tour the Southern Hemisphere, and for a handful of Scotland's top players, tomorrow they'll discover if they're to become the latest to be handed the honour for this summer series Down Under.
I think when you're putting together a Lions squad, it's not quite as simple as who's the best player. Sometimes it's makeup of squad. Sometimes you need the ability to be able to play a couple of different positions. So I like to think there's a number of our guys that are in for a really good shout. I think they're showing what they can do on a big stage numerous times. And hopefully, we get a good representation when that squad gets announced.
Glasgow's centre pairing of Sione Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones are widely tipped to make the squad, with Xander Fagerson also firmly in the frame. From Edinburgh, Duhan van der Merwe is favoured for a second Lions tour, and he could be joined by teammates Darcy Graham and Pierre Schumann. with Jamie Ritchie a dark horse to join the touring party. And from the Scots playing in other leagues, Bath's Finn Russell, Blair Kinghorn of Toulouse and Ben White at Toulon are all in the running. And this veteran of 2 Lions tours has high hopes for a strong Scots contingent.
You always dream as a kid, for example, playing for Scotland, but you know, the next step up the ladder is the British and Irish Lions, and with anticipation, I'm sure a lot of the players are sitting on tenterhooks, you know, having represented Scotland in the Six Nations, this championship during the URC as well, and hoping for that call tomorrow.
All will be revealed when Andy Farrell takes to the stage in London tomorrow. Jamie Borthwick, STV Sport.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Spring Sale.
And fellow Scot Jacob Fairley faces Fabio Fognini tomorrow in his opening match at the Italian Open. That's it from me tonight. See you again tomorrow. John.
Rahman, thank you. Let's go to the weather now. Here's Sean.
A clear start makes way for a day of ancient discoveries. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. Well, you know that in May we generally get quite a lot of fine weather. It's the driest part of the year normally, and that's turning out to be the case so far with high pressure around, and it's going to last through the weekend into next week. It's going to be a lot of dry, fine weather around, warm at times too. Those temperatures will be nudging into low 20s in the next couple of days. Quite chilly out there tonight with the clear spells, especially South Lanarkshire, Dumfries and Galway. Touch of frost perhaps in a few wee spots as well. But into tomorrow, another fine day, plenty of sunshine around, a little bit of cloud bubbling up over inland areas during the afternoon. In that sunshine, feeling very pleasant, especially around Ayrshire, Inverclyde, Dunbartonshire, Renfrewshire and Glasgow. Top temperatures tomorrow up to a very pleasant 17 or 18 degrees Celsius. Also around the Great Glen, those temperatures getting up to about 18 degrees as well. Over the next couple of days, no change really. We just see patches of cloud bubbling up in the afternoons, but plenty of sunshine otherwise. And those temperatures still managing up to about 18 or 19 degrees. We might be up to about 20, 21 degrees. Maybe Grangemouth top spot on Saturday, so feeling very nice during the weekend. I think on Sunday there'll just be a wee bit more moisture around, which will allow a bit more cloud to bubble up in the afternoon. But on Sunday morning, Sunday evening, should be plenty of blue skies. But all in all, it still remains dry, and it looks as if that dry weather is here to stay through the whole of next week as well. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, 3 brothers from Edinburgh are 26 days into an extraordinary 5-month row across the Pacific Ocean. Lachlan, Ewan and Jamie McLean are taking on the mammoth task of rowing 9,000 miles from Peru to Sydney. Their amazing feat is now the subject of a new documentary, Out of Our Depth, 3 Brothers on a Boat, which is available to watch on the STV player.
Physically, we're feeling good. I mean, there's the obvious, unavoidable little things like salt sores and, you know, your salt sores on your hands and your feet and your backside. But other than that, we're feeling physically really good. Mentally, it's always a roller coaster mentally. Day by day, you know, it's there's highs and lows. There's no in between.
Remarkable. That's all from us. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.